In this episode of An American Entrepreneur, we meet with a gentleman who started his own security and investigation company. He decided to go on his own when he came to the realization that it was more risky to work with a startup firm and help build it, and then with the possibility of being let go one day without having anything to show for his work. So come on, check out his story. I have no doubt you'll be highly inspired. All right, Clayton, so tell us about how you were inspired to start your own business to begin with.
Growing up, my dad was always an entrepreneur, so it just seemed obvious to work for myself eventually.
Was this your first business?
Certainly the most complete business. I've had a few small things we've tried to start up here and there, but nothing quite so serious as this.
Okay, well, when did you start this business?
About 14 months ago.
Really? Well, that's not very long at all.
Not very long at all.
So I guess you were already working in this business for somebody else to learn it first?
So I've worked as a security contractor, actually providing physical security services for most of my career. For the last 4 years before we opened up this security company that we own now, I was working as the vice president of business development for another company, helping them kind of get up off the ground. Got to start from the ground up and learned a lot about how the back end worked, which really did facilitate us doing this.
Oh yeah, that's got to be the coolest thing, to be able to learn that end before you start your own business.
Yep, a little bit of what to do, a little bit what not to do.
All right, so your name of your business is Prime
Security and Investigations.
All right, how did you come up with that name, and what other names did you almost go with, just out of curiosity here?
I don't know that there's a really good story for the answer to that question. It was actually, we started our training company when I worked for the previous guy. We worked there. We had actually started that training company together as partners. And when I left that company, we separated as partners from that training company, but we'd already had an established kind of logo and brand, and so it just seemed obvious.
Okay. Now, what are the services you offer?
The security company, we provide physical security services, that being actual people on the ground, providing security for persons, property, that kind of thing. And then from the training side, we do state licensing courses for private security officers. So to receive a license to work private security, we also do requalifications because that's required every couple years. And we do a whole host of other classes for individuals that want to come learn how to shoot or anything like that.
Well, as far as your training classes, I guess here in Texas, do you have to have a certain license to be able to do this?
To teach them, yes. Yeah, so
Really?
we have to kind of first step on the ladder is to become a licensed to carry instructor, which you have to have some qualifications for, but they're not really, really high. But that's kind of the bottom of the ladder, if you will, as far as state licensed instructors. So you become a state certified firearms instructor that way and a state certified classroom instructor that way. From there, you can apply to become a security instructor.
Well, tell us a story about how, when you were working for this other company, tell us a story about how you actually went out on your own and launched this business.
So I separated from the previous company in April of 2024, and I was getting actually ready to go on a retreat with the church that weekend right after that separation happened. And it was a little less than amicable, unfortunately, for everybody, but and sitting there talking with my wife and talking with these other men in the group and what we would do next, you know, kind of a little bit lost as far as what exactly we would do, because I'd put a lot of time and effort into building this other business. And as my wife and I were discussing it just, the thought of doing all of that work to build another company again for someone else at the risk that they cut me loose at any time and I've got nothing to show for all my blood, sweat, tears invested, it's slightly more terrifying than the thought of starting my own company.
Oh, really? So starting your own company was less terrifying?
Only slightly.
Slightly,
but yes, yeah. It was still probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Certainly one of the things I've prayed the most about before we did it.
So when you launched your own business, I guess you were actually the security person on site as you were building your business?
In the beginning, getting everything up and running, yes. So we're not independently wealthy. In fact, part of the separation from that previous company had been several months without pay for me. So we weren't starting it with a bunch of capital, and I knew I didn't want to take on a bunch of debt. That was
Good idea.
would be even more terrifying,
Right, yeah.
the idea of doing it on my own. And so for the first couple of months while we were getting all of our licensing sorted, I was having to go work jobs for other folks, not even through our own company because we didn't even have our licensing set up yet, and just taking all the money I made everywhere I went to work and all the spare money I could pull out of our personal account to kind of put into the business account to get everything up and running. The insurance, the licensing fees, all of it, yeah.
Are there certain kinds of niches in this business? And what are those niches, and are you in any one of those niches?
There certainly is. Obviously, all security kind of boils down the way that I usually explain it to people. All security is one thing, and it's loss prevention. So that's kind of what all security is. We are here to prevent loss. Sometimes that's loss of life. Sometimes it's loss of property, money, customers, time, all of those things. But you can niche that down to a specific type of customer. So you can, in our case, we do mostly private Christian schools. That's something that matters a lot to me personally. I've got kids in private Christian schools, and it's something that matters a lot to us. And also from the perspective of private schools, you might imagine that they would have a higher budget than public schools to pay for security, but the reality is they don't. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they're actually quite a bit tighter on their budget than public schools are. So that's something that as we were starting our company that we wanted to commit ourselves to getting into more specifically. Okay.
And as far as being in this niche, what are some nuances of this niche that you're in that maybe if somebody wanted to get into this, something they'd need to be aware of?
Well, certainly the most important thing when you're talking about spending a lot of time around kids, especially young kids, parents want to know that those people are highly, highly capable, right? So we have a very high level standard for all of the things that it takes to be good at security. We're really, really specific on guys being able to shoot very well. For instance, obviously, the hope is that never has to be the case.
Right.
But if it came time to need to defend the school with deadly force, the last thing you want is a guy that doesn't shoot very well shooting over the head of your kid.
Right. Yeah.
More than that, too, is having guys that are mature enough to be able to be in that environment around children and to act appropriately in those settings, while also being professionally bored while not losing that sense of attention.
Okay. So what are the other niches in this business? I know you said you're in the private schools. What are some of the other niches maybe that you're seeing out there?
One of the big ones that you can kind of see as you drive around on the highway even is the cash carry. So you've got businesses like Brinks or Loomis that.
Well, that's super niche down there.
It is indeed. What they do, they'll go from banks to retail locations to all the way to ATMs and things like that, and they're carrying large amounts of cash in an armored truck, driving around usually in a pair of 2 officers in those trucks. And they can go all the way from like a up-armored SUV to like a 18-wheeler, depending on how much cash they've got to carry. Also, private security for an individual where you've got like a plainclothes officer following people around. That's actually what I've done most of my career, is what we would call executive protection, where I would spend my time one-on-one or a couple people as a team on one individual, and our main focus is making sure that their whole operation, when they're moving throughout town, going in and out of places, that they don't have to think about the security. Our job is to be out of the way and think about all the problems so they don't have to.
So as far as this kind of business, I know it's not as simple as it may seem. There's a lot of tactics, a lot of strategies, mitigating risk. I guess you are going to open a school training for that right now to get people licensed up to do this?
Yep, we do have a school.
You already have it up and running?
Yep. So the licensing courses right now we offer online. The majority of it you can take online. There's still a component that's required to be in person. All the firearms and defensive tactics is required to be done in person. It's hard to teach that through a computer screen, obviously. And we'll be, at the moment we don't have our own space, so that's part of the reason for doing it online, is it's a low-cost way for us to get started as a business and kind of come into the market. Sometime in the next couple years, we hope to have a physical space where we can host those classes in person as well. And then we use a couple different ranges depending on where our students are coming from or the specific nature of the class that we're teaching. Sometimes we need more room, sometimes we don't need as much, or longer distances, et cetera.
Okay, I guess the reason why I thought you weren't teaching it is because I know you office out of your home right now.
At the moment,
which
yes,
is a great thing. You're keeping your overhead down.
Yep.
And so how many employees do you have right now?
At the moment,
in total, guards and any admin people?
At the moment, we have one other person who handles admin tasks. We've got my little brother. He actually works for us. He sends invoices to our customers, handles the schedule for all the officers where they are, and runs payroll every week. It's a pleasure to have him with us. And besides that, we've got, on any given week, 18 to 21 officers working shifts. Okay, well, I know I went to shoot some video at a location that you have here in Dallas, and I found it to be really interesting. It was really cool. It was a scrap metal yard company. Obviously, you've got a guard there to keep people from breaking in, stealing the metal, stealing the copper. Mm-hmm. But what are some, besides just protecting property, what are some other reasons why people will bring in security? Usually with private security, it's an understanding of the benefit and for the cost. So almost everybody needs security of some kind, whether that's a security system, whether it's security lighting, which, believe it or not, is almost always more effective than as many cameras as you could possibly afford. Usually what it comes down to is people understanding the difference between what it is we do and what it is they're going to get for their money other places. Not everybody can afford to have a physical officer on site, but it's also not always necessary. Security is one of those things that I think can be misunderstood pretty simply. Usually what it is that we're aiming for when we come to talk to a new customer, when we come to assess their facility or whatever they've got going on, our goal is to achieve some meaningful guarantee of security, considering the specifics of the area where they are, the business that they're in, the types of people that are in and around, that kind of thing. Not every place needs to be Fort Knox. So having an understanding of what a reasonable guarantee of security looks like helps people to make those decisions, and that's part of what we do. We offer those assessments usually for free for all of our new customers as they're coming on, or even potential customers, a basic risk assessment. And then we will make suggestions based on that as far as what we can do for them and what that will achieve as far as the guarantee of security. Do you guys do any security work that's just cameras only, where you've got cameras set up but you're at a remote location? We have a company that we work with to contract if one of our customers wants that as a service, but as a business currently, no, we don't offer that. So what advice would you give someone that wanted to start a business like yours? Well, first things first, you've got to have all the relevant experience or hire somebody who does. So to own and operate a private security company in the state of Texas, you have to have a minimum of 4 years of experience in management for a security company previously in order to apply to have the license to own a security company. Well, that's a while, 4 years. It is, and depending on who you ask, most people probably might say that that's not quite long enough, to be honest. But it is kind of a barrier to entry to make sure that the folks that are getting into this have some idea what they're doing, for sure. And the test is pretty difficult. I think in the state of Texas, the manager exam has about a 60% fail rate. So once you've got your manager's license, then you'll need to have your insurance in order, which is, depending on the type of security you're doing, can be really expensive or rather affordable. For us, most of our contracts are fairly low risk, so the underwriters love it. And we get a pretty reasonably good rate on insurance. If you're doing a lot of places where alcohol is served or where there's a lot of calls for service from the police department in a given area, your insurance is obviously going to go up considerably. And for most security companies, that's going to be the biggest expense to get started. Okay, so as far as, let's say you've got your 4 years of experience and you have to take that test, that's where your courses come in to get them prepared for the test? Our courses are for licensing for individual officers. Obviously, the test for the manager exam does cover a lot of that same material, so you wouldn't need to know those things. More specifically, though, for the manager exam, the things that are going to be really difficult for most people is understanding how to read and understand the code as it's written in the state of Texas. Is there any specific kind of security work that you prefer not to do?
Or you'll just do anything, I guess, if you've got a customer that calls you, you're going to fulfill that need, or maybe you'll just say, I don't do that kind of work, go see so-and-so over here.
Kind of my general rule at the moment is that I'm not going to take on any contract that I wouldn't going to want to go work myself. So, because at least for the time being, at the size we are, when push comes to shove, if somebody else doesn't show up, guess who has to?
You do. Right,
and so we don't do a lot of apartment complexes. We don't do bars or clubs or anything like that. I usually stay away from strip joints and that kind of thing. Usually the things that are going to be high cost for insurance, high risk, or have some kind of a tie to things that don't match up with like how we run our business and our other customers. Because that's the other thing is, we represent ourselves. All the guys that are out there working for me also represent the company. But then as a company, we also represent our customers in some real fashion because we're public facing in almost all of these capacities, where our guys are, in a perfect world, honestly kind of part of the team of wherever we're at, our customers and their team of employees. We become kind of a part of that team.
So what other general business advice would you give someone that you've learned thus far that would help them? Just general, not necessarily in the security business, but just something that's kind of caught you off guard and you're like, wait a minute, and you kind of had to learn the hard way.
I think one of the biggest things, I think there's probably two things that I would say to anybody that was getting ready to start a business. And number one is something my dad used to say to me all the time. He'd say, son, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, you're going to have to make time to do it again. That's number one.
Very good advice.
Very good advice. So learning to take your time and do it right the first time. Don't skip steps to try to make it go quicker when you're getting started, especially with something like this, because it will come back to bite you and you will absolutely have to do it again. And I think the second bit of advice that I've gotten that made a really big impact on me in my career, even before I started a company, and especially now after owning a company, is don't ever underestimate the value of a relationship.
That's a currency in business. A lot of people don't realize that. Relationships.
Absolutely. I've made most of my career and most of the success of my career have been not because of things that I'm capable of doing on my own, but the vast majority of it because of the people that I knew. I've made a name for myself being the guy that if you don't have anybody else to call, you call me, not because I always have the answer, but I always know somebody who does, even if I don't.
Right, as far as the relationships go, always have a good relationship with at least one banker, one good attorney, and one good CPA.
Indeed.
And that's so important. And as far as CPAs and bankers, maybe a relationship with multiple.
Sure.
Because sometimes people can help you resolve this kind of issue, and some of them are in that area and they can help you resolve a different kind of issue. Mm-hmm. But well, that's really good advice. So where do you see this business 3 to 5 years from now?
At the moment, I don't know if I'm super sure. Probably still doing a lot of the same things we're doing now. We've been growing fairly consistently, but at a reasonable rate, which is something, again, I think that a lot of people fail to consider when they're coming in, is to make a plan for how fast you want this thing to grow. Sometimes things get out of hand pretty quickly, and we've had a few moments here or there where this week or that week becomes so busy that it's kind of hard to manage, but we've been blessed in that our company has grown relatively consistently and exactly at the rate that we could keep up pretty comfortably. And I'd like to kind of keep that going. I'm getting ready to hire somebody full-time for the office here in the very near future.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. That'll be taking over kind of a lot of the daily operations that I'm currently doing myself. Give me a little more time to spend on the strategic arm of the company and kind of position it to where we want to go in the future.
Which is your specialty. That's your area, not administrative.
Yeah. That currently the less time I can spend in front of my computer, the better for me.
Well, as far as your goals, I guess mainly you just want to just keep growing, take it one day at a time, and maybe expand out of Dallas to have another office in Houston, maybe Austin, San Antonio.
I think the biggest thing for us at the moment is that we want to make an impact on our immediate community first. More than just growing, more than making a ton of money. Obviously, we are a for-profit business.
As far as growing your business, what are your marketing and advertising tactics?
The most successful marketing and advertising we have is the guys that work for us. going around wearing these
referrals.
uniforms. Yep. Looking fantastic, doing a great job when they're
Really
dealing with
professional.
people. And almost all of our growth so far has been through word of mouth from our customers, because if we do a really great job for them, somebody's going to call them, say, what company are you using? And they'll recommend us. We go to one of our schools here in the Dallas area. These principals of these schools talk all the time. We're here at this school, and next thing you know, they want us to come over and quote over there, you know. Or we go to another business, you know, a lot of it is public facing. So the best marketing we've got is the guys out there doing a really great job.
Well, how do you do your recruiting? How do you find your talent?
So far, I've been tremendously blessed. The vast majority of the guys that work for us are people that I've known for years. And then just outside of that are the people that they've known for years, and kind of so on and so forth. The birds of a feather, if you will, flock together. So if we've got a guy who does an absolutely stellar job, odds are pretty good he knows other people that are going to do a really great job also. And so that's kind of our main source of new candidates as we need them.
What are your most looked for attributes when sourcing a candidate? I guess that, you know, can use a firearm, obviously.
That's a really teachable thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really good at teaching people how to shoot. If I've got somebody that comes to me that I really like and I really want to hire them, but they're maybe not up to the level of proficiency we'd want them to be, we can solve that problem. The problems I can't solve are personal skills, how you deal with other people, honesty, people that'll tell the truth, you know, people that are consistent, those are the types of qualities that matter more to us as a company. And when I'm interviewing somebody, I try to approach interviewing new candidates a lot differently than at least I've ever seen anybody do it. It's mostly just a matter of sitting down and having a conversation, getting to know them. Again, at the size we're at right now, nobody works for us that I don't interact with on a really regular basis. And so if we can't get along and we're not going to be able to communicate, that's going to make it really difficult to work together. Yeah.
Well, Clayton, I appreciate it, man, you coming on. Been very interesting. I have no doubt you're going to grow this business really big. And thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The biggest takeaway Clayton shared is when starting your own business, do it right the first time and don't take any shortcuts. If you take shortcuts, it eventually will come back to bite you. As always, I hope this episode inspired and enlightened you. I'm Curtis Mulberg. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.